everybody, welcome back to this week's episode of Working for the Rich and Famous. Hope you're well. This is going to go out next week. So we've just gone into our second lockdown, which is really sad and disastrous for our industry, especially for those who are already looking for work. All this is doing is delaying their job search, and really looking forward to talking to Paul today. Paul's got a really cool story on a number of counts, because he came into the industry fairly late, which is notoriously quite hard to do. He came into the industry in a senior management position, which is also notoriously hard to do. And he's had two really good long positions, but then unfortunately was looking for work at the start of the year and has been hugely affected by the disastrous year of 2020. So up till now, all of our podcasts have been like super inspiring and positive and successful about these people that have had all these amazing careers. And, you know, in reality, I think a lot of people listening are probably thinking, well, that's all great. And that was all great for us too. But, you know, COVID hit and it's had such a different effect on me. And we've been, you know, massively held back by this pandemic. And we haven't really talked about it much yet on the podcast. And there's no point pretending it's been great. It's been horrific. And I'm really keen to talk about how it's affected us as an agency as well, because I know a lot of candidates get frustrated with agents, and you know, we have our own frustrations as well. So it'd be really interesting to get into how the year's been for a candidate in the market, and obviously I could talk about our experiences as a recruiter as well. So loads to cover. So let's get straight in. Paul, how are you?
Yeah, very good, thanks, Philippa.
So you, I've caught you at a fairly good time because you're fairly available, although we were just saying before that actually whilst you've been on the job hunt for most of the year, you've actually had a bit of activity in the last sort of week or two in terms of interviews and stuff, which is great, and also mad timing.
Yeah, I know, it is mad timing. I had a trial last weekend, and then I had a second stage interview with another family yesterday. So who knows what will happen? Lockdown starts today, but you know, we live in hope. So
what were the two families saying to you? So obviously when you went to the trial, went to the interview, were they sort of interviewing you, talking to you as if they were keen to get someone started during lockdown, or was it all going to be on like a paused?
Yeah, no, it did seem as though it would move quite quickly. But then on Saturday, obviously, I was in the middle of the trial. I did the trial on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and then on Saturday, the principal had the news, and so that kind of threw her a little bit, and so I'm not quite sure what's going to happen. She's from another country, and so she may be travelling back. Who knows? So I haven't heard anything as yet. And then the same thing applied for my second stage interview yesterday. And I think the principal there is leaving the country today to go back to his homeland. So you know, we'll just have to sit tight and see what happens. It could be a slow burner. It could happen really quickly. Who knows?
You know what? You never know. And sometimes it's we're surprised the most in these scenarios. So when you think, you know, it's been a bleak year and it's just about to get bleaker, maybe this is where the positive times will come. Who knows?
That's right. Yeah, just nice to get out there and meet those people and just you know, get across to them what I can do, and that's what it's all about, isn't it?
And even if it is a slow burner, you got the ball rolling. And even if they're in a position now where they've been interviewing and they're going to have to pause until sort of early December, at least, you know, the ball has started the ball rolling with it all. So who knows? But nice to see. And, you know, if people listening who are also job hunting, I see that movement's happening regardless. And even though lockdown has started and they knew lockdown was starting, people are still interviewing, you know. So have you, during your year then,
yes,
we may as well talk about this year, and then we can talk. We do order today. We go back and then talk about what you've done before. So, first of all, why don't you take us back to the beginning of the year? Why you became available for work again, and then how the year's been for you?
Cool. My last role was quite a demanding role, and it was forever growing. I became sort of married to the job. It was, you know, very demanding, and I felt myself feeling quite unwell, and so, you know, I just thought I'm going to have to leave this and then try and find something that was a little bit concentrated on one house, one family, because I was dealing with multiple properties and 7 families in total, so it was quite a lot to do. And so I left at the end of last year, 2019, and then, you know, I just became quite unwell and found out that after an MRI scan I needed some surgery to have a tumour removed from my pituitary gland. So obviously I had to have surgery for that, and that took me a while to recover from that. But thank, everything went well, and I'm fully recovered now. That's all fine. But obviously then COVID came along, and it just kind of knocked me for six for the second time, really, because it just became so difficult then to just sell myself to people, and it was just, it was, as you know, it was just a time of frustration mostly, because there were jobs coming up, but you weren't hearing anything back from people because principals were uncertain of the times. They didn't want people in their house. Some people were moving out of London into countryside houses. I think the property around Surrey, Berkshire, Hampshire, some of those houses were sort of doubling in price. There was so much demand for people moving out of London. People were being made redundant left, right, and centre if they didn't want to move with the families to other houses. So it was just all a real mess at the time, and just been constantly trying to apply for things that I see. I'm noticing that there's not really a lot of house management roles available. There are some, but mostly kind of butler, possibly lots of housekeepers, lots of chefs, that kind of thing, but not too many house managers at the moment. But anyway, so my year has really just been just constantly on the recruitment hunt, really. But in the meantime, I've had sort of stopgap jobs just to sort of get me out and about and help me to pay some bills. So it's not all bad at all. I'm just hoping that that one will come along fairly soon. But now going into a second lockdown, we'll might have to be a bit more patient for a bit longer.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Well, it's just been such a funny year, and I think the house managers will have felt it the most, because, like you say, I think there've definitely been recruitment of housekeepers, because I think people have been increasing their housekeeping team because they're in residence the entire time, whereas they may have just used it weekends, etc. So I think people have been recruiting new housekeepers. And people have been recruiting new chefs who may not have had chefs before. But what we found is, like, people haven't really been leaving jobs out of choice. So where you would normally have quite a lot of movement in the market, and house managers would be moving on, and chefs would be, moving on, etc., that's just not been happening. So the only recruitment that we've really seen, or roles become available, are new roles that have been created within the house. And that's just massively reduced the volume of roles that are generally available, because just the odd housekeeper here and there. And I think what a lot of people have been struggling with is we're getting, and I don't blame these people, we're getting lots of applicants, highly overqualified applicants for these junior roles. And I don't blame it. I've got really, really good housekeepers house managers and palace managers applying for housekeeper roles, and then they're getting super frustrated because they're getting rejected, even though they know they can do it.
Yes.
But I can see why they're getting rejected, because a palace manager who's used to managing 400 staff is not going to stay in a house as one of two housekeepers in Berkshire for the next 5 to 10 years.
No.
Whatever they say, they're not going to. It is a stopgap job for them. It's a job because they need a job. And I can see why clients, and it's just weird. It is weird for a house to take someone overqualified. I think a lot of people struggle to get their head around this, and they don't understand why being overqualified holds them back. But I get it, because it's a weird dynamic in the house if your housekeeper's got more experience than your house managers, Yes. And if I was recruiting a junior consultant in my office, and then someone applies who ran their own agency for 40 years, I'm not going to employ them to be my junior administrator, because it's weird.
That's right.
So housekeepers have been all right if they've been looking, although then you've still got the issue with the housekeepers, where a lot of the roles are live-in and will often require relocation, which people might not want to do. So there has been recruitment throughout the year, and there has been roles available, but they've just been junior level roles and really specific in terms of location and conditions, which isn't going to suit people. So it's just really difficult. And then, as you can imagine, the volume of people applying for position as well, that's the other issue that's sort of coming up against job hunters, because, you know, we get a housekeeper position, like we're getting probably between 1,000 and probably about 1,500 people a week approaching our agency and creating a profile in our system and, you know, applying to our roles, you know, and some of them are really good and some aren't. Some are really good, and we just can't do anything other than say we'll keep you on file. But they're getting bored of hearing that, some people, and people are getting super frustrated that agencies aren't getting back to them or helping them and all the rest. But ultimately, there's only so much an agency can do, you know, with what we've got.
Yeah, we just find ourselves in a really awkward situation, don't we? It's not. I think, you know, candidates out there watching this or on your books just need to understand it's not their fault.
No.
The country is sick right now. The world is sick right now. And it needs a medicine, doesn't it? And
yeah.
Nobody likes the taste of medicine, but unfortunately for all of us, we still need to keep taking it. And ultimately, you know, it'll make us better again, and we can carry on with our lives properly. But for now, you know, it's a case of keep looking at all the, you know, building up good relationships with people like yourself, recruiters, you know, looking around, just trying to make friends. I've found LinkedIn quite a nice thing to do. Looking up with certain people there that have been quite helpful and giving reasonable advice, you know. But somehow, you know, we just have to remain positive and just keep going on, and eventually something will come up. I've got a friend actually she was in fashion, you know, and lovely lady, and she's just gone to the UAE and has got a job after waiting almost a year again. She's got a sort of butler house manager role in a palace over there. But out of all, you know, she was in fashion, was struggling with that. She did a butler course, and then started to apply for things, but wasn't really getting anywhere with it. And then suddenly she managed to strike up a relationship with a principal over there in the UAE through a contact. And this principal, the main thing she really wanted in her house was somebody that knew about fashion, as well as house management and butlering. So, you know, she's only been doing it for 2 weeks, but she's loving it. It's hard work, she says, but you know, it shows you that all things happen for a reason, don't they? You know, you're doing fashion. Who would have thought that would have taken her to be a palace manager in UAE?
It's so good. Yeah, because that she wouldn't have even considered that or had to consider that if it wasn't for this situation. I personally think that November and December is going to be a write-off for our sector. December is always a bit of a write-off for our sector anyway. November, December is going to be a write-off, and I think we'll see the upturn come January. Once we get into mid-January, once we get past New Year and Russian New Year, I think we'll start to see a bit of an upturn. And I think we found this back in June when there was a lockdown, March, April, and everything just straight away put on hold. The minute there was a bit of movement in terms of, you know, being able to mix households and stuff, there was a flurry of activity come June. And I think we'll see that again in January. So my advice to people now would be patient. And I suppose I've had my ups and downs, and recently I've been like so sick of it all. But ultimately, if we can't change the situation, which we can't, we may as well change our perception of the situation, which we can change. And so instead of sort of getting, well, I'm now thinking, instead of getting like bummed out and worried for the company and worried for my team and all the rest, I'm thinking, right, what can we be using this time for? And we're actually now doing some really cool stuff internally and really sort of mixing up how we're working and improving a lot of what we're doing internally. So when we are in the upturn, we are, you know, ready to maximise the opportunities. And a candidate should see it the same way. What are the candidates doing to, you know, make themselves more employable than they currently are come January? And my other biggest advice is still apply to the roles at your level, because you're only going to waste your time and get frustrated applying to roles beneath your level, because you'll get offended that people aren't considering you for them, even the junior roles. So don't undersell yourself, and don't undersell, you know, your worth, and don't go for roles you can do on your head and that are paying less than your worth, because I think that it's best to aim high and miss than aim low and hit. Because if you aim low and hit, you're stuck way beneath yourself. You know, you're best off aiming high and not hitting every time, because when you do hit, you're laughing, you know. So November, December, ride it out, get some fireworks, enjoy Christmas, eat some mince pies, January.
Right.
And yeah, like you say, use the time to network. LinkedIn's been incredibly active. You and I, we've both been really active on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's been a really good place for people in our sector to sort of talk and use the time to create relationships with your consultants at different agencies. And for sure,
don't just do emails. Don't just shoot an email and hope for the best. You know, call them, talk to them, try and build up a friendship relationship. And you know, lots of things are closing down now, and it will be closed for the next month. Who knows, maybe longer. But there's lots of things that are not cancelled. You know, you can't cancel conversation. You can't cancel relationships. You can't cancel songs and music. You can't cancel reading, self-care, and you can't cancel hope, can you? So, you know, we've got all those things to do while we're struggling along with lockdown. So,
yeah.
And that's
Yeah, exactly. I completely agree. There's so much that we can be using this time for, other than moaning and bitching about recruiters and jobs and applications and all the rest. So, fabulous. Right then, so that's that. So you've had your interview, you've had your trial, fingers crossed. Hopefully there's still going to be some more stuff out there over the course of November, December. If not, I definitely do think you'll see a big shift in pace within the market come January. So let's look forward to 2021 for a more normal market where we can all start to thrive again. So that's what we're sort of focusing on. So building up to then last December when you had to leave your last role. So let's go back to sort of where it all began for you, because you came into the industry quite late, typically. So what were you doing before, and how did you even come to know that this world existed?
Sure. Well, I started off my career with BT and worked in their hospitality division. And then after 7 years, they transitioned it all over to a contract caterer, Compass UK at the time. And so the first time I really knew that wealthy people had staff at home was through our CEO of Compass, where we used to go over to his personal house to do certain events, and there would be housekeepers there. He'd have a driver, he'd have a butler, he'd have gardeners, and all that kind of thing. So that was my first realization. That oh right, these people have people at home to look after them as well as at work. So and then after 7 years, I left Compass and went to work for a record company that my brother was running. So I stayed there for 10 years. It was great fun. I went to 25 different countries. It was great, lovely time. Really enjoyed it. Met some brilliant people.
What was your job doing that though? What were you doing?
It was kind of merchandising, organising travel, organising hotels, looking after artists, that kind of thing. Yeah. So, cool. But I didn't intend to stay so long, to be honest, but it just became a really good, fun job. So I stayed for 10 years. And then following that, my brother wanted to set up a charity, so I helped him set up a charity. And within that, we did a musical project where all the money raised went to help 16 charities all around the world. Which was fantastic. It was like a real joint effort between all the songwriters that were involved. And within that time, I met this high-flying guy in finance, and he told me about his country estate out in Sussex, and he had a domestic couple running it, and they were retiring, and so he knew about my hospitality experience, looking after the chairman of BT and the senior directors and all that. So he invited me to take over from the couple that were retiring, and that's literally how I got into to this business 9 years ago in 2011. Yeah. So I was a bit raw. I didn't really know what to expect, but all of a sudden, I had 9 hats. He took me on as a house manager. I quickly realised that I would be, dealing with household bills, maintenance plans, the grounds development, because he had a lot of land there, cars maintenance, making sure they were all serviced, MOT'd and spotless. I got involved with driving for him and a bit of cooking as well, looking after guests when the family weren't there. They'd have guests in. So, liaising with contractors and interior designers. So, house managers wear many hats, don't they?
Definitely. And you know what? I love it when somebody can see your transferable skills, because ultimately you don't need to have been a house manager to be able to be a house manager. You need to have the skills to be able to be a house manager. Now, that's great when a client themselves can see it, because obviously they see you, they know who you are, they know your personality, and they know you can do the job once you get used to the role. And that's great. What's so difficult is when you haven't got that direct connection with the client, going through agencies or PAs or business managers, and it is impossible through those routes to be considered for anything, because no one knows who you are, no one knows you. They look at a piece of paper and they're like, no way, he's never done it before, he'll never do it. So I really feel for people that come to us and want us to help them get into the sector, because whilst we can see the transferable skills, our clients won't justify paying a fee for somebody who is going to need a lot of hand holding at the beginning when you're up against people that have done it loads. So I always say to people, there's any way to have that direct introduction or direct connection. It's all about, we talked about it before, networking and stuff. If you're new to the industry, it's all about that, and you're much more likely to get a job, your first job, through a direct route rather than through an agency.
And it was partly through a relationship with him, because I knew him in different circumstances, so I built up a good rapport anyway. So he learned to trust me. But he said that I was a good organizer and a good communicator. With those two skills, he took me on that basis, because he knew that the house would be in safe hands.
And so you started the role. It's obviously probably a lot different to what you thought, and there's a lot more involved than what you thought. You're 3 months in. Are you thinking, I'm loving this, or what the hell have I done?
First 3 months were definitely scary times. Yeah, there were. I've worked in an environment where I didn't have to think for myself a lot of the time. I was managing people, but there was a structure behind what I did. There was marketing, there was human resources, there was all these departments behind you that could help you with your job. But then when you go into household management, all those things all roll into one. So you then have to start thinking, right, I need to learn that and do that myself. If you want staff, you need to go and find them. You need to recruit them. You need to train them. You need to appraisals with them. You need to give them a bonus or something if they're really good at the end of the year. All those things became my problem, whereas before, in a corporate environment, those things are done for you, aren't they? So that's just one example.
It's cool though. I think it's good when you're further on through your career than a 20-year-old to be given the opportunity to be learning all this new stuff. It's cool.
Yeah, definitely, most definitely. Yeah, and you have a certain amount of freedom as well. You're not tied down to all these management levels in a corporate environment. You're the manager, and everything stops with you. You're the go-to person for the principal. So if something's not perfect, then it's wrong, isn't it? I think I heard somebody else say that on your podcast, but it's so true. If it's not perfect, it literally is wrong. So you just have to maintain everything as perfectly and as 5-star standard as possible. And that takes building a team around you that you can trust to do that as well, because you can't possibly do it all yourself.
It definitely takes time to get the team in the right thing. It also takes time to learn what the principal wants, because what's perfect for him may be not perfect for your next principal. So
that's exactly right. It's adapting all over again wherever you go. You need to try and understand what the principal wants, and then deliver.
So that's
always different.
Yeah. So that first job that you had,
Yeah,
talk us through. Was it one property, and what was the size of the team?
it was. So it was a grade two listed house in 8 acres of land. It was a country in the Sussex countryside, and we just used to have two gardeners that looked after. Half of it was fields and things, and then the other half was landscape gardening. So we used to have two people there, two housekeepers, and one that used to help with the cooking as well. And yeah, and a driver, and that was it. So it was quite a small team. It was perfect for my first kind of baptism of fire into private households. I was very lucky because the family they were an American family. They were extremely um, accommodating. They kind of invited me into their family. Really, it's just a real privilege to work with them, and I was just gutted when they decided that they had to go back to California after 5 years. Otherwise, I'd probably still be there.
Mm. We talk about this all the time, and I think pretty much everybody I've spoken to has mentioned it, that it's because of their first job that
Yes.
why they're still in their role, because that could have gone that if that was a different type, if that was a different experience for you, you would have left the industry.
Yeah, most definitely, for
Mm.
sure. Yes, yeah. But he knew a businessman from Malaysia, and he very kindly sorted me out with a job with him. So I went for an interview with the Malaysian family, and before they left for California, I was already working for the Malaysian family. But it was just very different. It was in London. It was multiple properties. The Mary Poppins style townhouses.
Mm-hmm.
So go from a grade two to these Mary Poppins houses, sort of different 6 floors all of a sudden, lots of stairs.
Mm.
And there was lots of families as well. There was 7 families involved. So the man who created the business in 1955 had 7 children, and then when he passed away, 7 children took on the business, and so they all had their own property, very wealthy, just incredibly, incredibly wealthy. But Malaysians, Chinese, they're just very different. Nice people, but the culture is different from Americans, and so you have to adapt to all of that, and that can be tricky sometimes. You think you're doing well, but then sometimes you don't quite understand what they're saying, and vice versa. And there can be a bit of a mix up with language or the way you do things. It's just, yeah, it's just very different.
It's such an unusual industry, isn't it? Because like if you were to work with, say your entire career is all working with English families, fine, fairly one-dimensional, but fairly easy, you know what to expect. But typically it's not like that. Typically as you move through your career, you work with such different types of families, normally different nationalities. But what a unique opportunity we have to like live within these different cultures within the UK and learn how a Malaysian family live and learn. And you only really learn by living with them. It's like when you start dating someone, you don't really know if you like them until you start living with them, really, because that's when you really get to know each other. And yeah, you got these unique opportunities to like embed yourself in these like such different lives, And
Definitely. And they were very generous people as well. They always gave their staff a bonus, and really, really liked staff to be loyal, as anyone would expect anyway. But they're particularly set on loyalty. So yeah, but it just became busier and busier there. Their assets grew and grew. They went from 12 properties to 26, including 4 properties in Surrey on the Wentworth estate. So they've got a lot of assets here, and it takes a lot to keep it all going and maintained. And in the end, I wasn't really getting any help, and I just wasn't feeling well, so I just had to leave the position, and just wanted to get back into working for one family, one house again. That's kind of really what I'm looking for now. You know, 2 or 3 houses, not a problem, but not 26.
Not 26. That's ridiculous to even get your head around. Yeah, I was going to say, what's the sort of next step for you in terms of what are you looking for? Some people say, I don't really, a lot of people say to us, oh, I don't mind. It's like, well, you must mind. And if you don't mind, you just better spend a bit more time thinking about it, because there must be an environment where you excel the best, and where, you know, you can utilize your strengths the best. So it's good that you know in your mind the environment that suits you best, and it's that, you know, smaller portfolio of properties, smaller team where you can, you know, which you can manage thoroughly. So
Definitely, that's my next step. Definitely, I don't really want to go into, you know, multi property or chief of staff position, to be honest. Just a house manager role, small team. I don't mind flexibility in terms of hours of work or days of work, kind of thing. You know, I'm fully flexible in that way, and but just need to have a smaller outlook on it. So
yeah,
a couple of houses and one family, or 2 families, 2 houses, that would be lovely. Yeah.
yeah. And are you bound by location, or are you flexible in terms of where you work?
I'm not. My kids are grown up now, so they're all you know, up and out. So I have a bit more freedom to sort of go where I please. I'm looking in London, and anywhere south of London really. So I have a home in Sussex, but I can also live in London as well. And I also don't mind living in either. You know, I'm completely flexible in that way. So it gives the principals quite a wide scope. You know, if they're in a selection process, they know that, you know, I'm very flexible in those areas, and I think that helps.
Yeah.
In this environment as well, you have to say to the principals that, you know, their convenience is always our inconvenience. So if they want to go somewhere on a Sunday and you're doing something, it's tough, isn't it? You've got to be with the principal while they're there. Very often, the way it works is that when the principal's away, that's the time that you can have the time off in lieu, and that's the way it rolls in private households.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I think people that can't accept that, it's not the industry for you. You know, when you're needed, you're needed, and when you're not, you're not. And it's not up to you, unfortunately. And plans will change last minute, which is annoying, but part and parcel. And, you know.
Yeah. Things are always changing last minute, for sure.
Exactly. Right. So let's sort of move on a little bit then. So as I ask everybody, this industry is brilliant for seeing unusual things or weird requests or whatever, and just stuff that your mates down the pub would be like, you what? What? I was wondering if you have anything that you can share.
I've got a couple of things. Yeah, I've got a couple of things.
Yeah.
One household that I worked for, the lady principal insisted on me instructing the housekeepers to, when they went shopping, to ensure that they went out 3 times during the morning. They would have to go out with a bag just for vegetables, bring it back, put it in the fridge. Then they would have to go out again for fresh meat in a separate bag, bring it back, put it in the fridge. And then they would have to go out a 3rd time, and then for fresh fish, bring it back in a separate bag in the fridge. And so
that is ridiculous. So they would spend the entire morning shopping, and they would go and come.
Yeah.
That's mental. Why would you do that?
I don't know. It was just a case of they really didn't want to do online shopping, so they would just employ a housekeeper, so that half the day she would be shopping, and then the other half she would be, you know, doing laundry and ironing and that kind of thing. So, and then the other thing I need to tell you as well, it's even more bizarre, is that another woman principal insisted that all the crockery after lunch and dinner should be hand washed under a hot tap, not just once or twice, but 5 times by hand without using soap. And then following that, they should be put into a dishwasher and put through 1 cycle and then put through a second cycle. So those plates and dishes were washed by hand 5 times and then went through the dishwasher twice before they came out and they were put back on the shelves. And you weren't allowed to use any soap. And also, all the dirty tea towels from the kitchen, they had to go in that separate washing machine. They weren't allowed to go in the clothes washing machine. They had a separate washing machine just for dirty tea towels. And you could only use washing up liquid. Can you believe it? You had to put washing up liquid into a washing machine. Can you believe the bubbles? If you put too much, you have bubbles coming out all over the place.
Right, firstly, a few things to come on here. One, why is it always the bloody women that request these stupid things?
I mentioned that, should I? No. I didn't mean to say women. I should have just been neutral there.
No, I love it. But it gives us normal women a bad name when these bloody mental women request the weird things. Secondly, she'll put washing fairy liquid in the washing machine, but not in a sink, which is mental. Washing things 7 times is mental. Oh, all of that is. Are they 2 different people, or is that one woman wanting? Same with the shopping. Are they 2 different people?
No, it's one person.
Yeah, it sounds it. She sounds mental, and also difficult for you as a manager with a straight face to get housekeepers to do this and be happy to do it.
Yes, and you can't put that in a job description. You know, you can't do that. It's something that you employ someone to do, and then they find out. You kind of mention it to them when you've accepted them into the role. You know, you don't kind of say that at interview stage, otherwise you wouldn't see them again, would you?
No, exactly. The job description says weekly shopping for the family, and in reality, it's 3 trips a day for this mental lady.
Yeah.
And also for that woman, that poor housekeeper going shopping, the shopkeeper must think she's mental.
Yeah, that's the other thing as well. You know, especially when they have to take things back, because everything has to be perfect when it comes back into the house. So if, for example, a melon had a blemish on it, it would have to be taken back and a refund given. It wasn't just a case of you chop it up and give it to the staff. It would have to go back to the shop for a £1.50 refund.
Honestly, I feel like this lady has far too much time on her hands.
Yeah, she was. I think in that culture, again, it's different from English people, where you know the culture is the women look after the house and the men look after the business. You know, so it's very much women kind of rule the house a lot of the time in those kind of Chinese culture.
Yeah, I can imagine, and notoriously difficult to please.
They can be, yeah, for sure. But again, like I said, you know, they can be very generous as well with their not so much their time, but you know, they do make sure that if staff are loyal, they show their loyalty back.
Yeah, which is nice.
Yeah.
Okay, and then let's sort of finish up with a few quick fire questions. Super simple, super easy, very sort of similar to what we have in other podcasts. Is the private sector what you expected?
I mean, I have had my eyes opened on certain occasions, yeah, as to how some of these people live and behave, I suppose, rule unto themselves, some of them. But so that's opened my eyes a little bit. But I just know that if you have a good relationship, you try and have a good relationship and a good rapport with your principal, and you show loyalty, you want sort of longevity in the job, then you know things can be really good. You've just got to be prepared to put in the hours and put them before yourself on a lot of occasions.
Yeah, I think what a lot of people are often most surprised about is it's a lot harder than they think, both the hours, but it's quite physically labour intensive, can be, especially in houses with stairs. I think some people are like, yeah, it's not just, it's more than just a job, isn't it?
It's more than, you just have to, you have to wear lots of hats, like I said before. You know, one minute you're dealing with a leak, you know, the next minute you're driving them to Harrods, the next minute, you know, you're driving them to catch a plane at the Farnborough Airport. You know, it's just and very often you don't know what's going to happen in that day, so you have to hand yourself over fully.
Yeah.
Because you really don't know what's coming next sometimes.
Yeah, agreed.
Sometimes at the end of the day, you think, I've done that, and that, you know, and you think, crikey, what other job would you be able to do all of that in one day, all those different things? Yeah, and you're very much in it on your own, you know, with a small team very often. You know, in the corporate side, you've got lots of people around you that can help you and get things done quickly. But in the private, it's down to you. It stops with you, and so you're the one that's got to make it happen.
And you know what? There's pros and cons to that. The fact that it is just you is good in the sense that things get done quicker than in the corporate world, because you don't need 10 sign-offs. You can just make decisions and get it done. But then the downfall with that is you have to get it done. So buck stops with you when it finger points at you, and you know there's no shared, you know, responsibility or shared blame anywhere. So yeah, it's stressful but cool. So you obviously, I know this, you've got a wife who happens to be called Philippa Smith. Good name.
It's like the Mr. and Mrs. Smith show today,
I
isn't
know,
it?
it is the Mr. and Mrs. Smith show, but you obviously have a wife and a life outside of home and grown-up children. Have you, over the last 9 years, found it difficult at times to you know, keep your work and your personal sort of separate and have the time for your personal life?
Yeah, it does certainly eat into your personal life for sure, because you have to drop family life for what the principal wants sometimes. So there has been occasions where I've had to cancel things, but yeah, Pippa, she has got used to that though, and she knows that this is what I want to do. She's very involved in her work. She works for a charity for abused women, so she's very involved and you know loves living where she lives in Sussex. So you know she's generally happy, and the kids have grown up, so we have that kind of bit more freedom now. And she's not worried if I sort of have to spend time away. I we always try and have 2 days in the week where we're together and we can catch up, and the rest of the week we're generally flying all over the place. But it's been great in lockdown because I've been here longer than I've ever been in my life, really. So so it's been nice from that point of view. Been lots of walks and lots of, you know, time out and about. But she's been working from home as well. So you know, it's
That's good. I've got friends, I know people who have similar experience to you, and this lockdown's been great because they've had so much time with their loved ones and all the rest. And I've had other people that it's doing their head in all this time at home, and you know, their marriage has not survived this long because they spend time together for sure. Like they need
that flip side as well, and my Pippa would say the same. You know, she's talking to abused women. She does a thing called the Freedom Project. So it's kind of a course where women can go on it to find a way of escaping their perpetrators, you know, kind of thing. So they've seen a huge increase in just, you know, violence towards women, unfortunately, in this time. So that's been a real negative.
Yeah.
And not just women, men as well.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
They're having to sort of come up with a course for men now as well, because you know some women are giving their men a hard time out there. But you know, that's I don't know. It's just the times we're living in.
Yeah.
It shows you it is good to go out to work and find your space in a relationship. You know, if you're living on top of each other all day long, it can have lots of pleasant consequences, I guess.
Yeah, fair. Do you prefer households that have young children or don't have young children?
I really don't mind, to be honest. The last two families I've worked with have had children, so it's been, you know, it's been fine. Yeah.
Do you prefer families that have pets or don't have pets?
Again, I really don't mind. In the countryside, there were goats, there were chickens, there were horses, so that was all quite fun. in London there was no pets at all. But in the trial I did last weekend, there was a lovely dog there. Took out for a couple of walks, you know. So yeah, so I really don't want a pet friendly.
Good, that's good to know. What are you, when you're employing a new member of staff into a house, what is it you're looking for?
Loyalty, hardworking, good standard, 5-star standard. I'm looking for experience as well. I generally like to employ, I shouldn't say this really, but somebody who's a little bit older with a little bit more experience. So, and I know that the principals generally prefer that as well. So, but you know, I wouldn't. I mean, you're looking at lots of hospitality people out of work now. I'd look at people in the hospitality industry coming and try and get them through into a private household position if they're willing to do housekeeping or cooking or something like that. You know, because at the end of the day, contract catering, you're on a set wage, whereas you can actually earn, you know, decent wage.
Yeah.
As a housekeeper in London, especially, or as a chef, a lot more than you can in contract catering.
Yeah.
So, you know, I wouldn't rule that out at all. I know what these hospitality staff, the skills that they have, and I know that they're transferable in the same way as I transferred mine. So, yeah, I definitely wouldn't rule that out, and I feel so sorry for so many that were working in the restaurants and pubs, and right now, you know, it's a very difficult time.
Yeah, definitely.
Even the Ritz is closed today, you know, so.
Yeah. And even Sainsbury's today announced, bearing in mind supermarkets revenue have gone through the roof.
Yeah,
I'm definitely spending a fortune on food, so I'm not going out, and if all I can do is eat at home, I'm going to eat well at home. But Sainsbury's today announced that they're making 3,500 people redundant for their deli. So even in a super safe supermarket, you'd think, and they've been frontline workers, key workers all this time, yet they're getting kicked out.
Yes. John Lewis the same, you know, 1,500 I saw that were going yesterday. So, you know, this is what we're facing right now. And, you know, if there are jobs in the private household sector for these people, then we need to try and find it for them, you know. And yeah. If I get a position where I'm recruiting for staff, I wouldn't rule that out at all.
Yeah, I love that, and good for you. What's your biggest challenge when working as a house manager, like on a day-to-day basis? What's like the one thing that causes you the biggest headache?
Just, I suppose, not knowing what's coming is can always be a bit of a concern. You never waking up in the morning, you think you've got certain things planned. It's just that forever changing environment. So you might have a plumber coming in to maintain a boiler, but the principal then wants to do something else that you have to go with him that you didn't know about, so you have to call and cancel, you know, stuff like that. It's can get on your nerves a little bit.
Yeah, the unknown. Expect the unknown. And finally, then, so is this it for you, the private sector? Do you think you'll stay in this sector till the rest of your working days?
Most definitely, yes. Yeah, I'm happy in this sector, and I'm really hoping that I can find another decent principal and family to work for in the next coming days and months. And yeah, I'd like to stay there for the next 10 years if I can.
Yeah, that would be nice. Cool. Well, look, that sort of like brings it to sort of a natural end. Thank you so much for coming on, especially sort of talking about the difficulties you've had personally throughout the course of the year with your job hunt. There's little point just talking week on week with people that haven't been affected, because we are all affected, and the sooner we talk about it, the better. And I think moving forward with the podcast, I'm going to definitely try and be talking to people that have been affected, and you know how they've sort of managed it, and you know, what they've learned and how we can sort of help others, because ultimately that's what we want the podcast to be doing. So thank you very much. Thank you everybody for listening once again. If you want to come and be a guest, please drop me an email at philippa@silverswanrecruitment.com. Feel free to come visit our website if you are looking for work. As I said earlier, my advice would be apply to stuff that you suit. That is where your applications will be considered most seriously. Don't lose hope. I think come January, I really do think we'll see a flurry of activity across the entire sector. So let's just sort of, stick together and keep in touch. So looking for staff or looking for work, come visit our website, and please come and follow us on our social channels as well. So that's it from me, and I'll see you all next week. Thanks, everybody.